Welcome to the Caregiver Cup podcast. As we dive into November, I want to pause and celebrate you, the caregiver. This month is National Family Caregiver Month here in the United States, a time to recognize the compassion, strength, and resilience you show every single day. You are the heartbeat of caregiving and the steady rock for your loved one. And remember, celebrating you doesn't mean just cheering you on from the sidelines. It's about making sure you feel supported, valued, and empowered. Each week this month, I'm going to bring you topics, tools, and encouragement designed to uplift you, help you set healthy boundaries, and reclaim moments of joy and peace in your caregiving journey. Because yes, you're doing this out of love, but you're also allowed to focus on your well-being. So as you listened today, let's start with a small act of self-recognition. I want you to take a deep breath. Place your hand on your heart and just acknowledge the incredible work you're doing. The strength it takes to show up even on the toughest days deserves to be honored every day, not just in November. This month, I invite you to celebrate yourself as we celebrate all caregivers. Let's make National Caregiver Month a time to not only recognize your role, but to embrace the support you deserve, the communities that surround you, and the resilience you continue to build. You're not just a caregiver, you are an inspiration, a guiding light, and remember the power of love. Let's dive into this today's episode and keep shining together. Well, hello there and welcome to another episode of the Caregiver Cup podcast. We have a really great interview coming in just a moment, but before we get that started, I wanted to just thank Tracy for a fan mail that she sent us regarding last week's podcast episode about the waiting room syndrome that I had talked about. She had said, "Hi, Cathie, I've use waiting time to write and address holiday cards and letters, pay bills, and make other appointments or do calendar planning. Recently, I saw a story about knitters and crocheters who made scarves and hats and mittens to donate. Waiting room time could be a great opportunity to do something like that, especially if there's a flurry of appointments. Lastly, audiobooks." And then she signed it Tracy. It got me thinking about doing something creative and using your hands versus just letting those emotions and impatience and stuff fill up. However, I can't figure out how to knit or crochet. I've tried it. I have that, but I'm going to go ahead, and it challenged me to think differently. And I had to tell you this so that you would do that. Okay, so let's now jump into today's episode, and let me give you a little bit of an intro about it. We're honored today to have Cathie Gregory as our guest. She has over 11 years of dedicated experience as a caregiver. She's navigated nearly every challenge that comes with her role. Her journey is one of unwavering compassion, resilience, and an insightful understanding of what women caregivers endure. Cathie's story is both inspiring and relatable. At 61 years old, she's been a caregiver now for she's going on her 12th year, like I said, balancing her responsibilities with being a mother to 2 children, a grandmother to 3 wonderful grandchildren who are her beacons of life. Transitioning from her successful career as a paralegal and an advocate for children at risk in the court system, Cathie had to make significant changes to focus on her loved one, which is her husband. Her husband was a master carpenter diagnosed with multiple myeloma. She shares the raw and emotional journey from the day of his sudden illness through the intense hospital stays, dialysis treatments, and the daily struggles of managing his health. She also gets into the conversation and teaches us the 3 I's of caregiving, which are identity, independence, and isolation. She explores how caregiving can transform one's sense of self, affects personal freedom, and leads to that feeling of isolation. But also, Cathie offers hope and practical advice on overcoming these three I's, from finding joy in painting and photography to leaning into spirituality and maintaining a support community. Cathie demonstrates how to reclaim moments of happiness amidst the demands of caregiving. And she has so many practical examples. I just want you to hear them. So as a listener, you'll gain insightful and valuable tips on balancing caregiving with personal well-being, some strategies for staying connected with friends and nature, and tips for maintaining mental and emotional health. Cathie's authenticity throughout the interview and her heartfelt sharing provides not only empathy, but actionable steps for caregiving feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. So what's in it for you, the caregiver right now listening? Well, whether you're just starting your caregiving journey or been in the role for years, Cathie's experiences, her wisdom will resonate deeply. You'll find encouragement to prioritize your own needs, inspiration to pursue your passions, and reassurance that you're not alone in this path. Her story is a testament to strengths and the love that caregivers embody every single day. So join me right now as we uncover her profound lessons and explore how her journey can empower you to navigate your own caregiving challenges with grace and resilience. And so get ready to feel this right now and understand and be inspired so that you can go out after you listen to this episode and be your best self. So enjoy the interview today with Cathie. I am so excited to have one of our listeners that I've been talking to for a long time, Cathie. I'm so grateful that you went ahead and took on the acceptance of being on this podcast. Cathie, you have so many years of experience, I think years of lessons learned, that I just want to pull them out of you and get your advice and your tips. And I think that anybody listening is going to benefit from bits and pieces. I call them golden nuggets today. So I am so excited for you, Cathie. Thank you for joining us on this podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, tell us about yourself, just about yourself. Before we get into your caregiving story, tell us about you, because I don't think we, as caregivers, we kind of lose our identity sometimes. So I want to know a little bit about you.
I don't know what I'm 61 years old, and I've been a caregiver for going into my 12th year now. I have 2 children. I have 3 grandchildren who are my beacons of light. I was a paralegal for several years, so I was in the legal system. And I was also an advocate for children at risk in the court system. So I did a lot of that. And then when I became a caregiver, I had to pull back from a lot of those things as a caregiver. And just been trying to find my way into doing other things that I can have fun with. Like I paint pictures, and I do photography, and I do walks out in nature. So, I had to replace those with my legal background, but that's okay. Yeah. I still check in with the attorneys to see what kind of good cases they're working on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm one of those crime podcast listeners. I love every so often, if I want something to focus in on, I listen to it, but I can't watch too many of it because then I start thinking the world is all bad. So I have to look at different things sometimes. But yeah, so who's your loved one that you're caring for?
My husband.
Okay.
And his case was really unique. He was a carpenter. He was a master carpenter, and he also did interiors of houses. So he had done that for many years. Everyone wanted him. And one day he came in And he said, I can't go to work today. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I feel so sick. I don't know what's wrong. And so I called the doctor's office and got him in for some blood work. And we weren't even home 15 minutes. And they said, you need to get him to a hospital right away.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was his kidneys failed, and he needed a blood transfusion. And they gave him 8 pints of blood at the hospital. And then they called in an oncologist who came in and diagnosed him with a cancer called multiple myeloma. It's a bone cancer, very similar in the family of leukemia. And it was at that time he went into Boston, and he was in the Boston hospital for about 2 months, and doing treatments and trying, and all of these doctors tried to figure out what to do for him. And I forgot to mention, I worked in a hospital too, because I've always been interested in medicine.
Okay.
So when I worked in the hospital, when I was in my early 20s, I learned a lot about medicine and medical treatments. And I was just jumped in both feet and worked with the doctors and the nurses and the whole team staff to figure out what we were going to do to help him, and, what were the options. And it's kind of funny because I went through the first year, and the oncologist, Catherine's a first-year med student, and then second-year med student. I'm up to third-year med student right now, and I can't go any further. And they said, you have to go to med school if you want to go beyond third-year med student.
Mm.
But it's been a long haul, and it's not easy.
When you say long haul, how long has it been now?
12 years.
12 years. And it happened suddenly. So did he
It
ever
was
go back to
suddenly.
work after that? No.
No, he was
No.
never, because he was put on dialysis,
Oh
and
my
he's
gosh.
still on dialysis today. He
Yeah.
did get, like your husband, he did get a stem cell transplant,
Okay.
and I used to have to give him his injections.
Okay.
Those were fun.
Mm-hmm.
So he went through that. He had a really rough time with the stem cell transplant. They weren't sure if he was going to make it, and he did. And and he struggles now, with his health, and he's got lots of issues, lots of medication, and it's a real struggle for him. And I think as a caregiver, it's hard to watch, because you get to this time and it's so long, and you say to yourself, dear Lord, why are you keeping this man suffering for so long? And you're doing I'm doing the best I can to, give him everything and possible that I can in his life, and to take good care of him and make sure he eats well and all of those things. But it gets really overwhelming and tiring sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, one day you're living your life, and the next day the door opens to a whole new world.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I was turned upside down, and I'm still trying to get right side up. I'm somewhere like in the middle right now, and I can't seem to go all the way.
right.
But it's there's this, I don't know if you've ever heard of the 3 I's of
No, tell us.
Caregiving. The first I is you lose your identity. Once your loved one is ill, you lose your identity. I'm not Cathie anymore. I'm a caregiver for this person. Okay. And then you lose your independence, because I'm Cathie, I'm the caregiver. I have to make sure that all of these things are set in place and this person is taken care of. So I can't just arbitrarily come and go wherever I want. No. So that's your independence. And then once that happens, you isolate, because who's going to understand where you are? You can tell people, oh, I'm a caregiver for this person. They don't understand, and it's not any of their fault, but they just don't understand in the process of your life where you are and what's going on in your mind. Mm-hmm. They don't understand, and it takes a long, long time to, for people to understand. And I'm very fortunate. I have a good core group of women friends, and they have been so supportive, and they make sure that they come and get me out and say, hey, let's go to dinner, let's go to lunch,
Good.
And
Yeah.
having a therapist is not a bad thing either.
No.
It's
Yeah,
really not.
let's back up and talk about those first few years.
Mm-hmm.
If you can take a step back, and I know probably if you're anything like me, those first few years, you probably just did what you had to do to just be that good caregiver. Did you
Right.
run into problems where you just kind of lost your identity? You didn't take care of yourself? Because I know recently you said, I've changed and I've been changing my identity. So let's talk about first where you were at when those first few years are, when it came to you taking care of yourself. Did you even do that, or how did you even survive that?
I don't think I did. I think I just I was on autopilot. That's
I know
probably
it.
that's probably a good way to put it, because they had his prognosis was 3 to 5 years.
Mm,
So now we're at year 12.
yeah.
So I was on autopilot for the first 10 years.
Yeah.
And then something about the 10th year just did me in, and I started having all kinds of health problems.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to get that squared away.
Yeah.
Trying
What
to
were
get that
some of the
squared.
biggest lessons you learned in those years up to lesson 10? Yeah.
Oh, um, oh, wow. I want to say that I learned how to better care of myself, but then I would feel guilty if I did that, because I
Okay.
felt like taking care of myself, I was not doing my job of
Yeah.
caring for this person that needed care.
What did you try? What did you try when it came to taking care of yourself?
Well, I would go out with friends, or I actually decided to challenge myself. And up here in New England, we have beautiful places to hike. And
Mm.
I decided to set a goal to hike 20 mountains. And I'm not talking little
Oh,
mountains, I'm talking 3,000, 4,000 foot mountains.
good for
And I
you.
did 20. I did it right before COVID.
Oh my
I finished in 20.
gosh.
I called it 20 by 60. So I wanted to
Yeah.
climb 20 mountains by the time I turned 60.
Oh, wow.
And I managed to do that, and I slid right under. And that was so wonderful. And I
Yeah.
felt really good. But then COVID came, and I went, oh, I can't. What am I going to do now? I can't hike. And
Right.
that's when the isolation came
Yeah.
in,
It
and
happened.
everybody was dealing with it.
Yeah.
And, but
Yeah.
I did that.
That gives you
Um,
purpose. I
yeah.
think that if anybody listening from a caregiving perspective, if you can go ahead and set yourself some sort of goal, because when you said that, Cathie, you lit up. Your
Mhm,
face was smiling. You seemed very proud. You were doing that. I bet you shared that with your husband. I bet you
mhm.
shared that with your friends. I think
Yeah.
that if other caregivers could just find a passion or something that they enjoy and set themselves a goal. It doesn't have to be
Well,
climbing a mountain, but it could be
no, well,
something.
I did it too because I have MS.
Okay.
And so I know as I get older, I may not be able to do that. So that
Yeah.
was part of it too. I wanted to see
Yeah.
how far I could push.
Yes. How many pairs of shoes did you have to go through?
Actually, I only went through, I had boots.
Okay. You
And
you
yeah,
you made it through. Okay.
I made it through. Yeah.
Because
And
I walk every day with my dogs, and I noticed that, okay, I'm going to have to now after the summer's done, I'm going to have to change up my shoes because I don't have any grips at the bottom of my shoes anymore. And I'm like thinking about you, but if you have boots, I'm sure they're probably a
yeah,
little bit more
they're big
durable.
rugged hiking boots,
Yeah, good for
and
you.
hiking poles. But yeah,
Yeah,
I was very proud that I
yeah.
did that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that isolation. So
Hmm.
I think we all experienced it. If you were a
Hmm.
caregiver in 2020, it was really hard. When you talk
It
about
was.
isolation, what did you feel? What was happening with you?
I just didn't want to do anything. Like Christmas, I would always have the kids in to make Christmas cookies, and I would invite the neighborhood children in. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it this year.
Yeah.
I just, I
Yeah.
found it even hard to read. I
Yeah.
stopped going to church.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would sit I would sit at home and watch the mass on TV.
Yeah.
When I was like, I could go to church,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I didn't. And
Yeah.
so isolation for me was just, I kind of shut out the whole world outside my front door.
Me too. Me
And
too. And then you tell your friends you can't go.
mhm,
You use the COVID as an excuse because you don't want to get it and bring it back.
right.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. And it does get to the point where how did you get yourself out of that isolation?
Um,
Did something a tipping point or?
yeah, I'm thinking of time segments. Hmm, I think my husband's sister got sick with lung cancer,
Oh my gosh, Cathie. Oh my
and
gosh.
then I stopped being, I stopped isolating,
Okay.
and I love her very much. She's my sister-in-law, and I wasn't able to go down and see her. I wanted to, but I couldn't get myself to that point. But I made it a point to call her
Mhm.
every Saturday, and then I started reaching out to other people. And what I would do is every Friday I would send people music for Happy Friday.
Oh,
So what
nice.
I was just so then, not everybody was sick with something. Sometimes it was just I was just doing this gesture, and then
Yeah,
everybody got used to me doing that on Fridays.
nice.
And then I would call my granddaughter in California every Saturday.
Yeah,
So I would talk with her because I
yeah,
don't get to see her as much because she's in California. I'm here on the East Coast.
yeah,
And I think that's how I finally started getting myself out of that isolation.
yeah,
And then, of course, the weather changed and spring came.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so then I started getting out and walking, and we have some great walking trails, and I just said I have to get out and walk.
yeah. Well,
So I think that's how I
yeah,
I I tried to figure out how to reach out to other people in a way that wasn't caregiving,
mhm,
but in a way that would make people feel like, wow, she sent this today, or
yeah,
and people got to the point where they enjoyed getting music
yeah. And I'm
on
sure
Friday.
it helped you too because you got to connect with them or did something fun knowing that you're helping somebody else.
Right.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's how I pulled out of the isolation process.
I agree. I think that's kind of the key there is to try to think of ways to go ahead and what you need inside. And are you an introvert or an extrovert? I'm just curious. I'm kind of an introvert, but I can extrovert, but I get exhausted. So
Yeah, I'm pretty social.
okay.
I'm pretty social, but I can be by myself because I love to read books.
Mm.
So I guess that sometimes when I read books, I don't like anybody bothering me, but for the
Yeah.
most part, I'm pretty social. And I have my two grandchildren that are here close. They live close, and they keep me going.
Okay, good.
So you kind of can't not have fun when your grandchildren are around and they're pushing you. They're
Mm.
going, "Let's go do this. Let's go do that."
And then they leave and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. Do you get that way too? I'm like, oh my
Sometimes,
God, the energy that they have. It's
yeah.
amazing. It's amazing. So, okay, let's talk about because you have so many great nuggets of information because you've been a caregiver for 12 years.
Mhm.
It's like, let's talk about some of the things that I call them lessons learned, but also your remarkable habits that you've shared with me as far as caregiving is concerned. So,
Mhm.
just start rattling them off. What are some lessons that you've learned, whether they be for yourself or for advocating or whatever it would be? Let's just hit some of these great tips that you have.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is take care of you.
Yeah.
And I always say it's like when you're on the plane and the pilot says
Yeah.
something happens, put your mask on first,
Hmm.
and then you can help someone else. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do, but you have to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you do have to advocate for yourself. You have to stay healthy
Yeah.
to the best of your ability, and you need to take time for yourself. Time is precious.
And what has
And
been some things that you've done to go ahead and you say make time for you or time for yourself? What have you done now that I know you said in the last, ever since you've been at that 10-year mark, things have been changing for you.
mhm.
What have you done now to take care of yourself?
Well, I go down and spend time at the ocean.
Okay.
I'll do an Airbnb or something like that, and just 2 or 3 days. But it's just enough to give me some breathing space where I don't have to make a meal, I don't have to clean, I don't have to run to pick up prescriptions, I don't have to go to the grocery store. I can just breathe.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's amazing what that does. And I don't always accomplish it, but I try to go like every 3 months or so,
so great.
even in the winter if I can.
Yeah, that's such a
'Cause
great idea because I think about like your cell phone. You think about a typical cell phone, it has to be recharged. Well, you
Mhm.
as a caregiver need to recharge. You need to personally rest and have that respite care. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What else were you
Oh,
going to
no,
say?
that's okay. I was going to just mention something really simple, but I love it. And that is to get a manicure pedicure.
Mhm.
And it's so wonderful because when you get a pedicure, they massage your legs and
Yeah.
and your feet. And it's like, oh, for that hour,
Yeah.
just, and that's something small, but wow, you can carry that through the day with you.
Yeah. Finding
And
that
then,
thing that you need to recharge.
yeah.
I mean, even simple things like we were hospice caring for my mom and my dad at home. And my brother and sister and I, we would do rotations where, you got the next 2 hours to yourself. You do what you
Mhm.
need to do to go ahead and take care of yourself. And for some of us, it was taking a nap. For some of us, for me, it would be like, I'm going to go for a walk outside.
Mhm.
So whatever you needed to do, you needed to go ahead and take that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you
What
ever
else
heard
do
of
you have? Go
Have you
ahead.
ever heard of nature bathing? Have you ever
No,
heard
but
that
I'm
term?
I'm I'm envisioning, tell me if I'm right. I'm envisioning going out and taking a bath outside. Is that what it is? No.
No, no, it's walking. Well, like I said, we have lots of rail trails here,
Okay.
which are
Okay.
beautiful.
Oh, now
So
I'm
when you're
embarrassed.
taking the nature, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just being aware of the nature that's around you. And when you
Okay.
walk on these, I don't know if they have them out in Wisconsin, if they have walking
Sure they do.
trails,
Yeah, they do.
but you hear, and if you just walk in silence, and no earbuds, nothing, just walk in silence, you hear the birds and the bullfrogs. Sometimes if there's water along the
Yeah.
trails, they're like doing
Yeah.
their own little music.
Yeah.
And just 35 minutes of doing that, and it's amazing how that will make you feel. You just feel, I don't know, like it's like a God feeling that, there's all this beauty around you. And it's just this sense of peace and
Yeah.
like an internal meditation. And I think that everybody needs that because it just changes your perspective from being maybe in your house, where even if you love your house, to have something outside of beauty. Like right now here, the foliage is just absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah. And for me too, the rustling of the leaves, like the squirrels are in the
Mhm.
leaves and they're rustling it. And yeah, and for us we have the geese flying over. So yeah, it is. It is. Well, I'll bathe in nature versus taking a bath in nature. I'm so
Well, you
sorry.
could if you want to.
No, I don't. But it is. It's putting down all the noise and just letting nature
Mhm.
fill in emptying. It's almost like emptying everything out and allowing new things into your body. I think there's something
Yeah.
special about that. Oh my
And
goodness.
the other thing that I found that's really fun is to talk to other caregivers. And I I started a caregiver group, but it didn't come to fruition the way I thought it would. But
Yeah.
I uh, was very friendly with one of the women, and her and I get together like once a month or so, and
Nice.
we laugh, and because we talk about the things that drive us crazy, and about our spouse, or she takes care of her brother, and she'll say, I can't believe that he did this or he did that. And we just laugh and laugh and laugh. And it's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's an oxymoron, but it's kind of different, I guess, to get to that point. But get to the point where you're laughing about this, and we'll leave and give each other a hug, and we'll just start laughing. We'll go, we can't wait more than a month to get together because we have to
That's
catch
awesome.
up.
That's awesome because there's so much power in humor. You're
Mhm.
on guard so much and you're so sad and you're trying to stay on all the time. And you have somebody to share this silly moment with.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you, I can't see it on in the interview, but there are so many things that my dad said to me that we laugh about to this day of
Mhm.
what he wanted in his last few days of his life. It was like, it was crazy. And
Mhm.
my mom was just that spitfire too. And it just helps to go ahead and laugh. Or have you ever laughed at yourself as far as, okay, I did this crazy thing and I cannot believe that I put the
Mhm.
ketchup bottle in the, in the freezer or whatever it would be because you're so overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I've done a lot of things
Oh
like
my
that. That
gosh.
I'll be cooking in the kitchen because I do a lot of cooking, and I'm like,
Yeah.
where did I put that pan? And I'll find it in where the dishes are or something,
Know it
something
because
crazy.
you're trying to be 3 steps ahead and trying to
Mhm.
be organized, and then you kind of lose sight of where you're at.
Yeah.
So
I always
yeah.
say, don't multitask. Do one thing at a time and then
Yeah,
move
right.
on. Don't
Yeah.
multitask.
And I'm the worst. I'm the worst. It's like, yeah. But I think getting back to what you had said, as far as finding your group of people, and I love the fact that you even found one person because I think
Mhm.
sometimes that finding that buddy, that caregiver person that's in the same shoes that you're in, that knows you personally now, and you can go ahead and reach out to that person to say, I just want to vent, or I just want to laugh, or I just
Mhm.
want to let's talk about something else besides caregiving and
Right.
just get away from it all is so
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Well, sometimes Nicole and I do, but then we always go back and she's like, I've got a funny story to tell you. so
Ah,
she, and
oh,
it has to do with caregiving, but it's funny, and
that's
it's
great.
so it's
That's
like, I mean, it's sincere humor. It's not,
sure. Sure.
not negative or
No,
anything
no.
like that.
Yeah. And I found that too, that there's some Facebook groups online that are really good, but there's some Facebook groups that I follow that they're so negative and I just can't stay on them because they're
Oh,
just downers all the time. But then there are some people that post that are just, you can feel the genuineness in them and
mhm.
really understand that as well. Well,
Well, like,
hopefully we'll get back to that someday and we can find that group of people that we all can connect with.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've had some really good friends that I've had for over 20 years. And
Mhm.
I think within 2 weeks, I went out to lunch or breakfast with four of my girlfriends. And I said,
Nice.
like, I said to myself, oh, be careful what you pray for. Because all of a sudden my calendar was full. And I'm like, "Ah, all right, I got to squeeze this one in. I got to squeeze that in because I don't want to say no
Yeah. Yeah.
because I haven't seen them in like forever.
Yeah.
And every lunch date, every breakfast date that I went on to see my girlfriends, it was just wonderful. And they were so supportive. And they've always have been for years, but I was
Yeah.
the one that pulled back and they were the ones that called and said, hey,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
see you.
That's like my girlfriend too. When I was going through all of the issues with my mom, she said, hey, what do you think about joining a bowling group? And I'm like, I've never bowled in a league before. And now it's so refreshing. It's a mixers group, which means that it's the ages go from 20 all the way up. The oldest person on our bowling league is 87.
Oh,
So
wow.
we bowl against just random people and it's not competitive. And I have found so many caregivers in that group.
Really?
There are
Oh,
people
wow.
that are caregiving their spouses, their siblings, their family members. So I found more and more. And I think there's people out there that just do what they have to do. And I'm like, you need to go ahead and listen to what the podcast, or we need to get together to talk about it. And I'm starting to be like you too. It's like, okay, be careful what you ask for as well. So let's get back to your tips. Any other lessons that you've learned? I mean, I
Um,
love the getting away. I love the, socializing.
Mm-hmm.
texting with or sending messages or meeting up with people. The music thing was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to take a nap.
Yeah.
It can do wonders, even if it's just 20 minutes. I know everybody says, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time.
Yeah.
You can make time for 20 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
And just rest.
Doesn't that remind you of like when you were a new mom and you were trying to go ahead and take care of your baby and you needed to get those cat naps in so that you never knew what to expect going forward?
Yeah, you slept when the baby slept.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Snuggle them into you, and then they would fall asleep. You go,
Yes.
right, I'm going to fall asleep.
Right. You have to. You have to. Little power naps are great for you. Good. That's a good one too.
So that's another one.
Any suggestions about, you said you felt like you went through years of medical training, which, you did work in the medical profession. What advice would you have for caregivers when it comes to being that, taking them to appointments and advocating for your loved ones or asking questions, that sort of thing?
I think that the most important thing is to bring a notebook with you and take notes. And before the medical appointment, doctor's appointment, write down questions that you may have. And, especially oncologists, if it's cancer, sometimes they can go way out into places that you don't understand. I don't know. Did your husband have cancer?
Yeah, he has Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's.
Okay. So does he have, like my husband with the multiple myeloma, they do tests for what's called light chains? I don't know.
No, they do lab work every 3 weeks. And then right now he's in immune therapy because
he's in immunotherapy. That's good.
Yeah. Because there's no cure for his non-Hodgkin's.
Right. No cure for myeloma either.
No, but then that's worse than my husband's. I'm just telling you. You probably know that. But we're just hoping to keep it in remission. So or just at a level. So keeping a notebook.
Yeah, and asking questions and thinking and I don't mean for people to go down the Google rabbit hole, but if you can get clinicals on your loved one's diagnosis, sometimes that can give you information, knowledge, and then you can start writing things yourself. I know it's a lot of work. A lot of people, they just say, I'm going to do what the doctor tells me to do. And, the prescriptions that are prescribed, I'll make sure that, my spouse or whoever they're caregiving, they take those. But it's, if you can and you feel comfortable with it, don't be afraid to look into things and ask questions with the doctor about that. It's not a bad thing to do. And they can even ask to be in on the group meetings with the different doctors. My husband has a nephrologist, he has a kidney doctor, he has an oncologist, he has a cardiologist, and I'm always on top of what they're doing and what they're telling him.
Yeah. And now, I don't know if you have it now, access to their medical records and their summaries and their notes afterwards is so helpful.
It is, but I have a hard time getting into the portal. I don't like those things. I get so confused. I'm like, where am I going?
Yeah. But you had said too, because my husband, he goes in for the lab work. And so that'll pop up either before his appointment or during his appointment or right after. And so it shows high, medium, and low if his levels are off. And then having the notes are so helpful. Another thing that I have, I don't know if your husband has, we have a nurse navigator, or I don't know what they call them in all different hospitals, but somebody that can help you if you don't understand something, or if you're questioning something just feels off and you're not a confrontational person or you're not a challenging person, you can go to that nurse navigator and saying, are we going down the right path? Or I'm concerned that this is going on. They can be your liaison too, for being able to ask.
And most of the oncologists have nurse practitioners.
Yeah.
And so I've always gone to her I have her cell phone number and I can
Yeah.
contact her anytime,
Yeah.
text her and ask her questions or anything like
Nice.
that. And that's very helpful.
Yeah. I think that this is just me thinking, you tell me if you agree or not. I think we become more knowledgeable as we go. I
Mhm.
mean, somebody brand new sitting in with us in an appointment, listening to some of the terminology that we hear. It's like
Mhm.
now it rolls off my tongue and
Right.
I don't even think about it anymore. And
Mhm.
being able to recognize or being able to see that. I mean, now Dennis has his PET scan again next week. So we're going to see where the hot spots or
Mhm.
inflammation is, to see if if we have to go back on chemotherapy or if the immune therapy is continuing to do its job, because it doesn't appear it is, but I'm hopeful that whatever it is, his team will do it. So, but yeah, knowing where everything is and being able to try to keep on top of things is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you don't know, it's worse. And that's when overwhelm can come in if you don't know, because you're always wondering,
Mhm.
as the caregiver, you're wondering like, and it is scary
Yeah, it
to
is.
to a degree to
Yeah.
get all that information and feel like you have to absorb it, and it
Yeah.
gets overwhelming and then you get scared.
Yeah.
But if you keep in contact with the doctors, and most of them are very nice and kind,
Mhm.
and have someone that like a PA, a physician's assistant,
Yeah.
that you can talk with, that's very, very helpful, and that will help to calm you.
Yeah. And isn't
So
it funny, because they know when I walk into with Dennis in the appointment, they know I'm going to ask questions. They know Cathie's going to go, oh, Cathie's here. Okay. And it's funny because we've switched oncologists because our oncologist left. It was so hard.
oh
And then we were assigned a new oncologist. We didn't like him. It was just not a good fit. And so we moved to a different one. But the very first one knew after maybe 3 or 4 appointments and said, Dennis, do you have any questions? And then Dennis would ask his, okay, Miss Van den Heuvel, what questions do you have? It's just cute because he knew that I was going to ask questions. So it's just, you have to just try to form that bond and that relationship with them so that
mhm.
you're just not another number coming through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah. And sometimes, one other thing that I can think of as a nugget, sometimes it's like, I guess I like to use the example of having this beautiful vase, and you carry it with you all the time because it's so beautiful. But if you picture that vase as the person you're caregiving for, if you hold on to that all the time, you will lose yourself. Set it down, set it down,
That's a very good
and
point.
walk and be over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't, you lose yourself. Don't lose you.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's another
Now, a
one.
lot of people struggle with asking for help, having help.
Mhm.
Can you offer some advice to people that are in that spot, or talking about how you have brought in or have help with, because you said you go away for once a quarter, once every 3 months, you take your little 2 or 3 days. How do you go ahead and juggle that from a caregiving perspective?
Well, I'm fortunate. My daughter she's older. I mean, she has two children, my grandchildren,
Mhm.
and she's very good. She doesn't live far, so she will
Okay.
come in. And my husband is pretty self-sufficient.
Okay.
He can bathe himself. He can make simple
Nice.
meals, and he
Okay.
has television and things to keep him occupied and things like that. And he does little bits of woodwork,
Okay.
just like he makes little
Keeping
clocks or whatever. So he keeps himself busy.
Gosh, we are
Um,
like a spitting image. That's kind of some of the things that Dennis does too.
yeah. But um, I think that if you don't have those advantages, maybe you don't have children, maybe you're, empty nesters and your children are away, there are support places that are out there for people that they will have someone to help you. My daughter works for a company, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's mostly for the elderly, and it's to get, if they need someone to come in and clean the house, or they need, devices to help them, walkers or things like that. There are organizations out there that do those things, and it's just a matter of looking them up, or even asking their doctor. Are there any organizations out there that may be able to help, because I can't do all of this on my own.
Yeah. And I think for me, the help is there could be physical help. There could be, people love to drop off meals, because when I first started out as a caregiver, people would say, let me know if you need anything. And what do we say as a caregiver? Nah.
No, it's okay.
We're okay. But instead, we should say, I don't think I have anything off the top of my head right now, but can I call you back if I do? That leaves that door open. And
yeah, that's perfect. And then that way the person can do it if they want to. They don't have to feel like they're obligated.
Or say, check back in with me in another month, and maybe I might need something at that time. It's just that way. But that's a huge burden, or a huge obstacle for caregivers sometimes to overcome. We had talked about that too. You feel guilty when you go ahead and have to have somebody else help you. But on the flip side, that's exactly what people want to do. People want to help. People want to do things. Simple things like when my mom was in her senior living apartment, there were neighbors all around, and they would say, do you need me to do anything? And I would say, no. And then eventually I started saying, yes. Can you bring up her mail and knock on her door and bring it in? And then just check in on her.
Yeah.
Can you, knock on her door and bring her, my mom liked Coca-Cola. She just was like all the time, bring her a Coke and ask her if you could come in and sit down with her for a little bit and just kind of snoop around. And I gave him my number, and being able to have that check-in. Even with my husband, when he had knee surgery, I just was at my wit's end, and somebody had said, what can I do to help? And his gentleman friends, I said, why don't you just schedule some time and come over and chit chat with him, and then I can get out of the house. Just simple things like that is very helpful as well. So before we close today, I want you to talk about your power of prayer. When you filled out the questionnaire to be a guest on the podcast, you talked about prayer and how important it was to you to help you through this journey. I would love for you to talk about that.
I'm a Catholic, so we have lots of prayers. And but one of the things that I do that just is very comforting to me is I go to church early on Saturday afternoons. Church starts at 4. I go at 3:30 and I do the rosary, which is very quiet, very contemplative prayer. I pray every morning. I read books on prayer. Some of my friends are nuns, so I get a lot from them. And I'm also an associate I'm like a third order sister.
Okay.
So, all the prayer is very important, and it's very, very comforting. It's very comforting. And so that, yes, my prayer life means a lot to me, and always has. And
does it help your mindset then too, as far as keeping you positive and optimistic, or helping you work through your issues? What does it do for you?
I think it gives me comfort, and it's one of those things I say, let go, let God.
Okay.
And
great.
One of my mantras is, dear Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. Dear Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. And that makes me feel good, because some days when I'm really having a bad day, I will say that I don't know how many times in a row. And then finally it's like, okay, you're here.
Mhm.
So my
Yeah.
faith is very important to me. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't judge anyone for
No.
anything.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
No judgment here at all. And, but that's what helps me.
You're finding your inner peace, and you're
Yeah.
finding your way to go ahead and grant yourself grace, and working through all of the challenges that caregiving can be. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you're finding joy then in the moments that you have with your spouse,
Mhm.
so.
I try. Sometimes it's hard.
Oh, I know it. Sometimes I'll have a talk with God and saying, okay, I'm not sure if I like you today.
I'm like, this is,
Why?
or I'll say, this has been a really long time. I'm not sure. Can you tell me what I'm supposed to be learning from this
I
experience?
know. I know. It's just, yeah, it's just interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting. And as a side note, I don't like I remember my dad in his hospice journey, and I'm Catholic too, and he had the priest over, he had the associate assistant people from the church over, and he was afraid to die. He did not
Um,
want to die. He
mm,
didn't understand the next journey, and he
mm,
wasn't confident with that. And for the longest time, Cathie, I it just was a heavy black cloud over me,
mm,
and it's just amazing what and we would have to constantly saying, can we get some pastoral support? Can we get him to talk to somebody, because he just was so fearful. He was just
mm.
fearful. And I know he's at a better place, and my mom and dad are probably doing the jitterbug all the time because they were big jitterbug dancers. And so I'm sure they're enjoying life, but it was just really a black cloud for me for the longest of time. And, being able to pray about it and talk about it and
Mhm.
trying to figure out why he felt that way. I don't think I'll ever know. I don't
Mhm.
think I'll ever know, but that was just very strange.
Yeah,
Very strange.
he just couldn't make peace with himself for whatever reason.
I know. I know it. And he was the sweetest. He journaled since 19, I don't know, 70 something every
Hmm.
single day. And so
Wow.
we had years and years of journaling, and every single day there was a prayer in it.
Mm.
So it was, yeah, it was just something weird, something weird. Sorry, I got off into my Catholic journey kind of
Oh
scope,
no,
but
that's okay. I
yeah,
appreciate that because I didn't know, so it's something else we share.
I know it. It's just amazing. We have the C and Cathie, the
Hmm.
C and Cathie. We both have spouses. We both have kind of the oncology diagnosis. I
Hmm.
mean, oh my gosh. Yeah. And you said you have grandchildren, three. I have three grandchildren.
Oh wow.
We just have a lot in common. So it's just amazing to see.
Now
So,
are you Catherine?
nope.
Nope.
No, a little funny story is that my mom and dad, I tell everybody, my mom and dad were lazy. They called me Cathie. My legal name is Cathie. But Sister Mary Ann in fourth grade, I had to stand in the corner the whole day because I wouldn't write Catherine on my paper.
And that wasn't your name.
It wasn't my name. Sister Mary Catherine gave me great grades for the whole school year after that, once my mom had to talk with her.
Yeah. It's like, this is her real name.
Yes, it is. It is. Oh my gosh. But
Oh,
yeah, I do have an aunt, a great aunt that was a nun, so too as well.
yeah.
So it was
That's
like,
nice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Catherine is my family is from Ireland, and so
Okay.
my grandmother was Ina Catherine. So
Oh, very pretty name.
after that, I became my middle name is Catherine. Then
Oh,
my daughter is Heidi Catherine, and then
oh,
my granddaughter is Mila Catherine. So
oh.
the
Lots of
Catherine.
lots
Yeah.
of Catherines along the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could have picked, I would have picked Catherine as well. So, but yeah. So let's conclude here today with advice. If you had advice for a brand new caregiver that was starting out in their journey, and they were starting to go ahead and figure out the world. Let's say their loved one got a bad diagnosis or their elderly parent was failing, whatever it would be. What would be maybe 2 key pieces of advice that you would give to them right now in this chaotic season that they're in?
It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad.
Yes.
And it's okay to seek help, whether that's through the doctor, your church if you have one. And don't be hard on yourself. Don't blame yourself. And don't push the feelings down. Because this is a journey. You're both on a journey now. Mm-hmm. Your spouse or your loved one is on a journey, and you're on a journey. Your journey is not to be on the same journey as they are. Your journey is to be a person of support and compassion.
Could have said that better, because I think that I went into it all wrong. I thought I had to be this superwoman going in there and being the strong one, where no, you're figuring it out. You're figuring it out. And you're just as much trying to go ahead and work through the process as your loved one is.
Right. Yes. And it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
And don't be hard on yourself.
No. And I like that. And I guess my last question for you is, you mentioned therapy, mm-hmm. and the therapy or the support or asking for that piece. What mm-hmm. would be your advice to somebody that is thinking about it but not sure? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that therapy is worth it, because it's the one place that you can say anything that you want in that space of time with that person, because they're mandated by law. They can't repeat any of your conversation. So you can be completely honest, completely open to this therapist, and that will be so beneficial to you, because you have to be honest with your therapist, counselor. You have to be honest. And sometimes I think people are scared because they think, oh, is this person going to say something about me to this person or this organization? They can't. They're mandated by law. Right. So I think that that's something, I know I didn't mean to get the legal part of it in it, but sometimes people think about that. Yeah. And it's really worth it. And it can be very helpful. And you can get feedback from that counselor that will help you and help you hopefully stay calm, or help you along the way to understand as you're going through the process. I've been with the same person that has helped me right from day one, and she's wonderful.
Yeah, because I think as caregivers, you have to understand that you're going to go ahead and you're going to have symptoms from caregiving as well, physical symptoms, but also mental symptoms and emotional symptoms. And you have to go ahead and continue to take care of yourself and get the help you need from your physical symptoms, but you're also going to need to get the help from your emotional and all of your mental health issues that potentially could arise, the sadness, the anger, the resentment, whatever it would be, to go ahead and figure that out. Yeah. Well, wonderful, Cathie. It's been a pleasure to go ahead and have you on the Caregiver Cup podcast. I think there's so many cool nuggets of information that people are going to get. Hey, before we wrap up today, wasn't that an inspiring episode? And I want to kind of pull it all together for you. First of all, I want to extend a true heartfelt thank you to our wonderful guest, Cathie Gregory. Her journey and wisdom she shared has truly resonated with all of us, I believe. Cathie left several golden nuggets that I just want to quickly review. She talked about walking the trails, or the whole concept of being in nature. She emphasized how this incredible feeling that comes from walking and immersing yourself in nature simply by going outside and listening to the sounds and taking in the beauty of nature and the natural world can really rejuvenate you, and you can find more peace. Another one she talked about is her dates with her friends. She highlighted the importance of taking time for yourself by going on dates with friends, whether it's sharing laughs or engaging in meaningful conversation or enjoying a different setting. These moments can significantly boost your mood and energy levels. Now, I've done in both ways. I've gotten together and have my bowling nights with my bestie, but I also have my a weekly or bi-weekly now FaceTimes with my sister, which is really fun as well. And so we have those conversations. I go out for breakfasts with my brother. So find little outlets that can help you find your friends and still have a little bit of joy outside of caregiving. Another one is she said, don't be afraid to take a nap. And I have had to wipe off that guilt or that feeling of guilt for going ahead and taking a break to recharge. She talked about just a 20-minute power nap can make the world of a difference and help you feel refreshed and ready to tackle the day's challenges. I was particularly reminded of that, like I said last week, when all of the things were really going chaotic and I had to because I wasn't sleeping well. So remember, you have to grant yourself grace. And if a nap is what you need, find a little bit of time. And then the last thing she stressed was the building of the team and the importance of building support teams. And you have to just think outside of the box and all the people that are helping and all the contacts that you have, whether it be your medical team or leaning on family and friends or having a strong network within the caregiving community, and it helps you manage things better. You just might need somebody to bounce your ideas off of, and it helps with the isolation piece. So the key takeaways for me for listening to Cathie is experiences have reinforced whether I cherish, I really feel good about the conversations that I had with her. I share so much in common with Cathie. That's the big thing. I was stumbling over my words is when she was sharing her experiences, I was like nodding my head because we have so much in common. And it's incredibly comforting to know that somebody gets you and we're not alone. And these golden nuggets Cathie shared not only provide practical tips, but they can spark new ideas and strategies that can personalize and fit into your unique situation. So whether you're just beginning your role as a caregiver or have been doing this for years and years, Cathie's insights offer valuable guidance and encouragement. Remember, taking care of yourself is just as important, if not even more important, than taking care of your loved one. I want you to incorporate your tips into your daily routine. Maybe you take one of Cathie's tips and add it to your daily routine, but don't hesitate to reach out. Remember, you can be on my mailing list where you get my weekly emails. You can go ahead and listen to this community. You can send me a text message. I have free resources. I have some paid coaching and paid resources. I have a lot for you to stay connected. So thank you for tuning into the Caregiver Cup podcast this week. I hope you found today's conversation with Cathie Gregory as enlightening and uplifting as I did. I want you to really think about your strengths, finding your connection so that you don't feel isolated, and remember that you are not alone. So until next time, I want you to take care and continue to look at that cup. If that cup is running low, that means you have to fill that cup. That cup has to be filled all the time for you to show up as your best self. So keep shining your light, my friend, and we'll talk again next week. Bye for now.